My girlfriend's coworker dropped a screenshot of her mirror selfie with some guy's arm on the bed, so I tracked the affair and made her pay. So I've been putting off writing this for a while, but I think I'm finally ready to share what went down with my ex. It's a bit of a wild ride, so buckle up. Names change for obvious reasons. Let me set the scene. I'm 28, been with Nia for 3 years. We met at this tech mixer downtown. I was doing a presentation on data visualization. She came up afterward asking questions, and we ended up talking until the venue staff kicked us out. She was smart, ambitious, and laughed at my terrible data jokes. I was hooked immediately. We lived in this decent downtown apartment with a lease in my name. My credit score was way better than hers. I worked as a data analyst at a startup that was disrupting some industry or whatever. You know how these places are. The money was good, benefits were solid, and I was basically crushing it. My team lead was constantly giving me the challenging projects, and I'd just gotten a performance bonus for catching this pattern in our user data that ended up saving the company a ton of cash. Nia worked in corporate training at this massive firm. She had always been ambitious, constantly talking about climbing the ladder, making connections, all that corporate buzzword crap. But hey, she was good at it, and I respected her hustle. She'd always come home with stories about office politics, who was moving up, who was getting sidelined. Sometimes I'd zone out during these convos. Sorry, but hearing about Karen from accounting's power play in the Monday meeting just isn't that riveting. Still, I tried to be supportive. When we first moved in together, we had this whole system worked out. I'd handle rent and utilities since I made a bit more. She'd cover groceries and subscriptions. We'd split any big purchases. Pretty standard couple stuff, right? Our relationship was good. Not perfect, but solid. We had date nights, weekend trips, the occasional argument about whose turn it was to clean the bathroom. Normal stuff. Then 6 months ago, the tech bubble did what tech bubbles do. Mass layoffs. My team got absolutely decimated. One day I'm working on this massive analytics project. The next I'm sitting in a Zoom call with HR being told, it's not personal, just restructuring. Typical corporate BS. They gave me a month's severance and a form letter recommendation that probably took all of 5 minutes to generate. I wasn't too worried at first. I had decent savings, solid skills, good references. But man, the job market was rough. Like ghosted after 3 interviews, rough, soul-crushing rejection email rough. Companies that had been desperately hiring 6 months earlier were now implementing hiring freezes or looking for unicorns who could do 5 jobs for the price of 1. After a month of nothing, I decided to pivot. I started building my own freelance data analytics business, created a website, reached out to contacts, started learning new visualization tools, the whole entrepreneur grind. I was pulling 14-hour days trying to make this thing work, staying up until 3 a.m., watching tutorials, rebuilding my portfolio, cold emailing potential clients. I'd fall into bed exhausted, wake up, and start all over again. That first month was rough, 0 clients. Second month, I landed one tiny gig that barely covered a week's groceries. I was burning through my savings faster than I expected, and the stress was starting to get to me. I admit I'd snap at Nia over stupid stuff, then feel like crap afterward. She seemed understanding, bringing me coffee while I worked, leaving me alone when I was in the zone. That's when the money started getting tight, really tight. One night, I'm hunched over my laptop applying for contract gigs when Nia comes home from work. She looks at me with this weird mix of pity and something else I couldn't quite place. "Hey," she says, dropping her bag on the counter. "I was thinking about the rent this month." I braced myself, thinking she was going to tell me we needed to downsize or move in with roommates, something equally depressing. My stomach was in knots. The thought of admitting I couldn't handle our basic expenses made me feel like a complete failure. "I'm good to cover your half," she continued, twirling a strand of hair around her finger. "You don't need to stress about it." I looked up at her, surprised. "You serious? That's a lot of extra cash." She shrugged like it was nothing. "Of course. I've been saving up and I may get a promotion soon. Plus, you'd do the same for me if things were reversed, right?" I was desperate enough to accept. It felt like absolute garbage, but what choice did I have? Rent was due, and my bank account was looking sadder than a kid watching their ice cream melt on the sidewalk. "Thanks, babe," I said, trying to swallow my pride. "I'll pay you back as soon as things pick up." "Don't worry about it," she said with a wave of her hand. "We're a team, remember?" The next month came around, and it was the same story. I had a couple of small clients by then, but nowhere near enough to cover my share. The business was growing, but at a glacial pace. I was spending hours customizing proposals for potential clients, most of whom would either ghost me or try to haggle my already rock-bottom rates down even further. "Let me handle rent again," she insisted while I was stressed about making our numbers work. "You need to focus on building your business. That's our future." "I don't know, Nia. That's 2 months now, babe." "Seriously, it's fine." She sat next to me on the couch and closed my laptop. "That's what partners do. You're working so hard. Let me support you through this rough patch." A week later, she surprised me with this expensive ergonomic office chair. The real deal, not the cheap Amazon knockoff, the kind with all the adjustable everything that cost more than my first car. It showed up in a massive box, and she was bouncing with excitement as I opened it. "This is for your back," she explained as I stared at it in shock. "You're always complaining about being sore from working all day." I loved it, but something was off. "Where'd you get the money for this?" I asked, feeling a mix of gratitude and suspicion. I mean, the chair cost at least $800, and Nia had always been pretty frugal. "Don't worry about it," she said with a dismissive wave. "I told you I've been saving, and I got a little bonus at work." Something about the way she said it didn't sit right. Nia had always been open about money before. She'd literally check in with me before buying anything over $100, but the first was too busy scrambling for clients to really question it. Plus, I was genuinely grateful for the chair. My back had been killing me from hunching over my laptop on our cheap IKEA desk setup. My brother Kyle stopped by that weekend to help me set up my home office. While Nia was out grabbing us lunch, he asked how we were managing financially. "She's been covering rent," I admitted, not proud of saying it out loud. "Says she wants to support me while I get my business off the ground." Kyle raised an eyebrow, pausing from assembling my new desk. "That doesn't sound like the Nia I know. She was stressing about her student loans last time we talked." "She mentioned a bonus," I said, unpacking some cables. Kyle looked skeptical, screwing in my desk mount. "Just be careful, man. In my experience, nothing's ever free, especially money. She's just being supportive." I defended her. "She believes in what I'm building." Kyle shrugged. Sure. Just saying, keep your eyes open." That comment stuck with me, but I pushed it aside. I was too desperate for the help and too busy hustling to land clients to give it the attention it deserved. Looking back, that was the first sign that something wasn't adding up. Things got weird about 3 months into my unemployment. Nia's schedule changed. Suddenly, she was having all these late meetings, weekend workshops, constant texts and emails. She'd put her phone face down whenever I walked in the room. Changed her password, too. At first, these changes were subtle. A late meeting here, a weekend training session there. But gradually, it became more frequent, to the point where our paths barely crossed. Team building session running late, she'd text, or professional development seminar this weekend. I didn't say anything at first, just kept grinding on my business, building dashboards for clients while she was networking. I was too focused on not becoming a total failure to really pay attention to the red flags that were basically slapping me in the face. Around this time, I finally started getting some traction with my business. I landed a few decent clients, started developing some recurring gigs that gave me a bit of financial breathing room. I still wasn't making enough to cover my full share of our expenses, but at least I could contribute something. "Hey, good news," I told Nia one evening when she actually made it home before midnight. "Got paid for that project. I can cover groceries this month." "That's great," she said, barely looking up from her phone. "But don't worry about it if you need to reinvest in the business. I'm good with handling expenses for now." "I don't want to take advantage," I insisted. "You've been carrying us for months." She finally looked up, giving me a strange smile. "It's really not a problem. I've got it covered." One night she's sitting on the couch, phone buzzing non-stop. I glance over and see the name Dominic lighting up her screen about 6 times in a row. It was the first time I'd seen that name. "Who's that?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Oh, just my manager," she says, flipping the phone over. "He's been mentoring me for this promotion. Lots of extra training sessions. He thinks you have special potential at 10 p.m. on a Tuesday?" I asked. "It's a big project." She shrugged, not making eye contact. "He's really invested in my growth." I tried to ignore the knot forming in my stomach. "Seems like you've been working with him a lot lately." "That's how you get ahead in corporate," she said with a hint of defensiveness. "You find someone to champion you, and you make yourself indispensable to them." That was a bit weird. I didn't know why at the time. Then the training sessions kept increasing. Thursdays became her late night. She always returned smelling like restaurant food and mints. Weekends started filling with mandatory networking events. I was so busy with my own hustle that at first it didn't register as suspicious. I'd be deep in SQL queries while she was texting, building data models while she was building her career. But things started adding up in ways that even my distracted brain couldn't ignore. Nia would come home talking about how Dominic was opening doors, introducing her to VPs, setting up special projects, how he requested her specifically for his team, how she was building her personal brand. It was Dominic this, Dominic that. Dominic apparently hung the moon and stars in the corporate universe. What's this guy's deal anyway? I asked once. He married? Kids? What's his background? Nia tensed slightly. He's divorced, no kids, MBA from Wharton. Been with the company about 8 years. Why? Just curious about this dude who's suddenly such a big part of your life. It's professional, she said quickly. He's helping my career. You've been working late a lot, I mentioned one night while we were eating takeout on the couch. Our third meal together that week, which was about 2 more than had become normal. Says the guy who's up until 3 a.m. coding. She fired back with a smirk. Besides, this mentorship with Dominic is huge for my career. Do you know how many people would kill for this opportunity? I get it, I said, pushing my food around. Just miss seeing you. It's temporary, she assured me, sliding onto my lap. Once I get this promotion, we'll celebrate properly. And hey, the money's been helping us both, right? That comment hit differently. Something about the way she said it made me feel like she was keeping score, like my struggle was just leverage she could use later. I kept replaying it in my head. The money's been helping us both, right? Not I'm happy to help or we're in this together, but a calculated reminder of her contribution. It was subtle, but my gut caught it, even if my brain wasn't ready to process what it meant. There was this chick named Tori she worked with, who'd started showing up in her stories a lot, always posting comments like "Go get it, girl," and make them notice you on Nia's work posts. They'd go for drinks, and suddenly Nia was buying new clothes, changing her hair, getting all fancy for professional headshots. Her wardrobe started changing too. More form-fitting clothes, higher heels, makeup that took her twice as long to apply. She claimed it was about executive presence and dressing for the position you want. Since when do you need 6-inch heels and a push-up bra for executive presence? I joked one morning. She didn't laugh. Tori came over for dinner once. Just watching them talk felt weird. They had this vibe like they were speaking in code. Nia kept mentioning Dominic, and Tori would give these little smirks. So, what exactly does this Dominic guy do? I asked during dinner. Besides mentor Nia, Tori almost choked on her food. He's the director of talent development, very connected in the company, very hands-on with his mentees. She glanced at Nia, who shot her a warning look. Sometimes men need a wake-up call, Tori said when Nia went to the bathroom. You guys have been together, what, 3 years? No ring yet. Most guys need a little competition to make them realize what they have. I just shrugged it off at the moment, but kept it in mind to talk about later. I was too busy with a deadline to care about her weird comments. In hindsight, that conversation was basically a flashing neon sign that I completely ignored. That night after Tori left, I tried to talk to Nia about our relationship. So, 3 years, huh? Do you feel like things are progressing between us? She looked surprised. Why are you asking that now? Just something Tori said about us not being engaged yet. Nia sighed. I'm focusing on my career right now. We've talked about this. We're building our foundation first, then we can think about next steps, right? I nodded. That made sense. But something still felt off, like we were reading from different scripts. I was thinking we were in pause mode because of my career setback, but she was framing it like her career was the priority holding us back. The disconnect was subtle but significant. I started noticing other discrepancies too, how she'd mention future plans less frequently, how her eyes would drift to her phone whenever I talked about long-term goals. Small things that wouldn't mean anything in isolation, but together they formed a pattern. My subconscious was desperately trying to flag. The next week, Nia mentioned a 2-day training conference in the city. Yeah, of course, with all the weird patterns I'd been noticing, late nights, constant texts, mysterious money, my analytical brain couldn't ignore the inconsistencies anymore. And a 2-day training conference? Just pouring gasoline on the suspicious fire. Perfect excuse for an overnight hotel stay on a weeknight. How convenient. Who's all going to this conference? I asked casually. The usual corporate crowd, she said vaguely. Dominic organized it. Seems like Dominic organizes your entire life these days, I said. I told you he's my mentor, she snapped. That's what mentors do. I drove her to the hotel the next morning anyway, but instead of heading home, I parked across the street and waited. 20 minutes later, a black Tesla with DVNTRS plates pulled up. Out stepped a middle-aged guy in an expensive suit who checked his watch, texted someone, then entered the same hotel. I didn't know for sure who it was. I stayed for a while and went back home. But the weird thing is that no one else from her corporate crowd showed up that night, except that dude. She texted about being exhausted from breakout sessions and having a migraine from fluorescent lights. I replied with sympathetic messages while my mind raced with questions. Instead of sleeping, I stayed up late, ostensibly working, but really digging through our financial records. I found something that made my blood run cold, a pattern of deposits from an account labeled Only DV, coinciding perfectly with when my job situation went south. The first deposit appeared exactly 3 days after she started mentioning this Dominic guy constantly. I was staring at the screen trying to process what this all meant when my phone buzzed. Like the universe knew I needed confirmation, a message appeared from Tori. I don't know if this is my place, but I think you should see this. Nia put it on her close friend's story on Snapchat, but I think you deserve to know. Below it was a screenshot, Nia in a hotel room. Clearly the same hotel from the conference. She was taking a mirror selfie in what looked like a bathrobe, crystal water glass in hand. The room behind her was clearly visible. Unmade king-sized bed, room service tray with 2 plates, 2 half-empty glasses on the nightstand, and just at the edge of the frame, barely visible, was a man's arm draped across the rumpled sheets, a distinctive watch glinting in the low light. The same watch I'd seen on the guy getting out of the Tesla. The caption, "Sometimes you have to make your own luck." I stared at it for what felt like forever. Zoomed in, the timestamp showed 11:30 to 8 p.m. when she claimed to be too exhausted to talk, the intimate setup, the half-hidden figure in her bed. The pieces were falling into place, and the picture they formed made me sick to my stomach. I texted Tori back, "Thanks. Do you know how long this has been going on?" "Months," she replied immediately. "Started as flirting. She said it would make you jealous enough to propose." I encouraged her at first because I didn't realize how far it would go. "I'm sorry. Does everyone at work know?" "Not everyone, but enough people have noticed. They're not exactly subtle." That's when everything clicked. The late nights, password changes, training sessions, her sudden interest in looking good for work, all the mentoring crap, and the money. The freaking money I'd been taking to survive while building my business from scratch. But instead of calling Nia and having some dramatic confrontation, I did what I do best. I analyzed the data. I opened my laptop and started digging. I'm a data guy. We find patterns. I pulled up our financial history from when she helped me with rent. Most people wouldn't think to trace back deposits, but that's literally what I used to do for fraud detection at my old job. I followed the money trail. The funds didn't come from her personal account like I thought. They came through a series of transfers originating from an LLC called Dominic Ventures. So my girlfriend's manager had been paying our rent, and I'd been busting my ass 14 hours a day thinking I needed to make up for taking money from her, when it wasn't even her money. Interesting. I didn't know what I felt at that moment, but it was ugly, part humiliation, part rage, part this weird sense of validation that I wasn't crazy for feeling like something was off. I remembered all those nights I thanked her for supporting me. How grateful I'd been, how I promised to pay her back, while she was what? Getting paid to be with this guy. I went to the bathroom and threw up. Then I sat on the floor for a while, trying to figure out what to do. The obvious move would be to call her, confront her, have it out, but that wasn't going to give me what I needed. I needed to understand the full scope of what had happened, and I needed to protect myself. I spent the rest of the afternoon going through every interaction with Nia over the past few months. Conversations that had seemed slightly off but not enough to worry about suddenly made perfect sense. Comments from friends who'd met Dominic at work events. The way she'd been distancing herself emotionally while keeping me dependent financially. The more I thought about it, the more I realized this wasn't just about an affair. This was about power. She'd been positioning herself as my savior while sleeping with her freaking boss, using his money to keep me afloat while building this narrative where I was struggling and she was succeeding, where I should be grateful to her. Where she had all the power. Nia texted she'd be home around 6. I said, "Cool." Asked if she wanted takeout. Like nothing was wrong. Like my entire reality wasn't crumbling around me. I called my brother Kyle. Remember how you thought it was weird Nia suddenly had money? Turns out her boss was bankrolling us. The same boss she's been sleeping with. Jesus, man. What are you going to do? Confront her? No, I said. A calm settled over me that I didn't expect. Something clean, something final. What does that mean? You're freaking me out a little. It means I'm going to be smart about this. I'm not giving her the satisfaction of a big emotional scene. I'm going to get all the facts, make my plan, and execute it perfectly. That sounds cold, maybe, but it's what I needed to do. Instead of exploding, I spent the afternoon gathering everything. Downloaded her location history from our shared account, showing all the times she was at hotels or restaurants when she claimed to be at working sessions. Found bank records showing dinner charges when she claimed to be at the office. Email receipts from hotel bookings under Dominic's name, the LLC payment records, everything. I dug deeper into Dominic Ventures LLC. Found business registration records showing it was created 6 months ago, right around when Nia started mentioning him more. The timing was too perfect to be coincidental. I found his LinkedIn listing him as still married to some woman named Claire, with 3 kids and a house in the suburbs. Very rich guy. I packaged it all up with the screenshots from Tori, made copies, organized it like I would a client presentation. This wasn't emotional for me anymore. It was a project. Then I sent an anonymous email to her company's HR department and legal team. Subject line: inappropriate manager-employee relationship and financial impropriety. No drama, no accusations, just evidence. Let them draw their own conclusions. I also drew up an invoice, every bill I'd covered for her share over the 6 months before I lost my job. Rent, utilities, groceries, trips, everything, plus the money she loaned me, the money that actually came from Dominic, printed it out with my account details for payment. When Nia came home, I hugged her like normal, asked about the conference. Yeah, I bet they were very important. Extremely important people at this extremely real conference. Top-tier networking opportunity right there. That's great, I said, watching her lie to my face. I'm happy for you. She talked about the sessions she'd attended, the people she'd worked with, completely fabricating an entire day of events that never happened. I just nodded, asking questions when appropriate, playing the role of supportive boyfriend. Inside, I felt nothing but cold, calculating determination. The next day, she acted normal. She mentioned another work event on Sunday afternoon, but suggested we could do brunch before. As we sat at this cute cafe downtown, she kept checking her phone. Everything okay? I asked. Yeah, just checking the time. Don't want to be late. I watched her over my coffee cup. You know what's funny? I don't think you've ever actually told me what you and Dominic talk about during all these mentoring sessions. She tensed slightly. Oh, career strategy, office politics, how to position myself for advancement, and that takes dozens of hours every week? She laughed nervously. It's complicated corporate stuff, right? I smiled. Corporate stuff. For the next 2 days, I maintained the facade, working on my business, having normal conversations, going through the motions, all while knowing what was coming. The crap hit the fan 3 days later. I was deep in a data model when my phone exploded with text from Nia. WTF is happening? Did you say something to someone? Dominic just got fired. They're putting me on leave. Who sent this to HR? Answer your phone. There it was. Full meltdown mode. She had no clue who lit the match, and I wasn't about to tell her it was already burned to ash. I texted back one sentence, "We'll talk at home." Then I turned off my phone and continued working. I wanted her to stew in it for a while, to feel the uncertainty I'd been feeling for months, to wonder what I knew, how I knew it, and what I was going to do next. When I got home, she was frantically packing, mascara streaking down her face. They know everything, she sobbed, throwing clothes into a suitcase. Someone sent all our texts, photos, everything, to HR. They have receipts, hotel bookings, everything. They're investigating me for ethics violations. Dominic's already gone. He's cleaning out his office right now. I sat down at the kitchen table and slid the invoice across to her. What's this? She asked, voice cracking. Your share of our expenses for the past 6 months, plus the rent you covered with Dominic's money. Payment details at the bottom. She looked at me, realization dawning on her face. It was you? You sent everything to HR? I just stared at her, expression neutral. What the heck? Are you serious right now? My career is imploding and you're asking for money? Yes, I said calmly. The apartment lease is in my name. I've worked my ass off building my business while you've been building your personal brand with Dominic. It's time you paid your share." I looked her dead in the eye, slid the invoice closer, and said quietly, "You've seen what I'm capable of when I'm disrespected. I'd prefer to keep this between us." She stared at me, then at the paper. "How did they get all that information?" "The only person who knew was—" Her eyes widened. "Tori showed you." I didn't confirm or deny, just waited. "This is insane," she said, pacing. "We've been together 3 years. I made one mistake." "One mistake is forgetting to pay a bill," I said. "You've been lying to my face for months, and that money you loaned me came from Dominic's company account. So technically, I've been taking money from the guy you're sleeping with while I was busting my ass trying to build something." She collapsed onto a chair. "It wasn't supposed to go this far. Tori said if I made you jealous, you'd finally propose, that I needed to seem in demand. It just escalated. And a caption about making your own luck while in a hotel with your boss. What was that about? I was drunk. It was stupid. Why are you being like this? It's not like you've been Mr. Perfect. You lost your job and I've been carrying us, with another man's money. While sleeping with him behind my back and making me feel like I was the one who should be grateful," I corrected. She started crying again, but something about it felt performative now, like I was watching someone act out a scene rather than experiencing genuine emotion. "What do you want me to say? That I'm sorry? Fine, I'm sorry. It was a mistake. But you don't have to destroy my entire career over it." "I didn't destroy your career," I pointed out. "You did that when you decided to sleep with your married boss and take his money." "He pursued me," she shot back. "What was I supposed to do? He's my boss." I kept calm. "Maybe say no. Report him to HR. Tell your boyfriend of 3 years what was happening, literally anything other than sleep with him and subsidize our rent with his cash. I was trying to help us." "No," I said, shaking my head. "You were helping yourself to his money, his connections, his influence. I was just collateral damage." She wiped her eyes, smearing her mascara further. "So that's it? 3 years and you're just done with me, over one mistake?" I didn't even look up. It wasn't one. She stared at me like she wanted a debate, a chance to spin it one more time. "I want you gone by tomorrow," I said. "You can crash with Tori or your mom or Dominic or whoever. But you're not staying here." She looked up, suddenly angry. "You should be grateful, you know that? Where would you be without me? I made you. You were pathetic after that layoff. No job, no prospects. I connected you with clients. I paid our rent. I made you a man." I stood up, calm as ever. "You didn't make me a man. You just forgot I was one." I stepped closer, voice steady. "You weren't saving me. You were trying to control me. Big difference. And now that control's gone, so is your leverage." She went quiet, and I just stared for a second before turning away. "Play stupid games, Nia. You just lost the prize." She stormed into the bedroom, slamming the door. I could hear her making calls, crying to someone about how unfair everything was. I put in my headphones and went back to work on my project. The strangest part was how calm I felt, like I'd been carrying this weight for months without realizing it, and suddenly it was gone. 2 hours later, my phone rang. It was Nia's mom, Patricia. "What the hell did you do to my daughter?" she screamed without even saying hello. "She's hysterical." "Hello to you too, Patricia. Don't get smart with me. She told me everything, how you humiliated her at work over some stupid jealousy thing. Did she tell you she was sleeping with her boss? That he was paying our rent? So what? She was helping you when you couldn't handle your own business. You should be thanking her, not destroying her career." I laughed. "Wow, now I see where she gets it from." "Listen here, you little. My daughter has a future. She doesn't need some loser data guy dragging her down. I raised her to take opportunities when they come, even if those opportunities are married men. Yeah, Dominic's married. Did she mention that part?" Patricia went quiet for a second. "That's his problem, not hers. Men make choices. Women take advantage. That's how the world works." "Not my world," I said, and hung up. My phone immediately started blowing up with texts from Patricia, ranging from threats to bizarre attempts at guilt-tripping me. I blocked her number without reading them all. Then I ordered a pizza, cracked open a soda, and spent the rest of the night working on a new client proposal like it was any other Tuesday. Nia moved out the next day. She paid the invoice with no argument, which surprised me. I think she knew I had all the evidence, and fighting it would just make things worse. My brother Kyle came over to help me rearrange the apartment. "You okay?" he asked, helping me move the couch to a different wall. "Better than I thought I'd be," I said. Want to talk about it? I shrugged. Not much to say. She played me. I found out. I ended it. Clean break then. Kyle nodded. That's good. But it wasn't quite that simple. A week later, Tori texted me. Hey, thought you should know. Nia's been telling everyone you were controlling and jealous, that you couldn't handle her success, and that's why you sabotaged her at work. She's playing victim hard. Not surprised, I replied. Thanks for the heads up. There's more, Tori wrote. She's saying you stole her money, that you manipulated her into supporting you while you pretended to build a business. That you were a leech. I let out a laugh. Let her talk. I have the receipts. She's pretty convincing. Got her mom involved too. Patricia's been on LinkedIn connecting with everyone in your industry, telling people not to hire you. That explained the sudden cancellation from a potential client I'd been in talks with. I hadn't connected the dots. I blocked Nia on everything, changed the locks, removed every trace of her from the apartment. Then I did something I should have done months earlier. I went through all our old messages and emails, found proof of every business contact she'd helped me with, every client she claimed to have connected me with. Turns out she'd been taking credit for my work, telling Dominic she was the brains behind my business ideas, that I was just the technical help. She'd been positioning herself as some kind of business genius using my portfolio to impress him. I compiled everything and sent it directly to the CEO of her company. Not anonymously this time, with my full contact information attached. In addition to the ethical concerns previously raised, I believe you should be aware that company resources and connections have been misrepresented. All attached work was created solely by me, yet has been presented by Nia as collaborative or her own. 2 days later, I got a call from their legal department. Nia had been terminated. They wanted to verify some information and make sure there wouldn't be any public statements about the situation. I have no interest in making this public, I assured them. I just wanted the truth known. After Nia left, the apartment felt peaceful. No more questioning reality. I threw myself into work, landing new clients and expanding my business. Kyle checked in regularly, dragging me out for beers when I'd been holed up too long. You can't just work 24/7, he insisted. You'll burn out. The business is just starting to take off, I argued. I need to capitalize on the momentum. Dude, you're using work to avoid processing what happened. Classic avoidance behavior. I flipped him off, but he was right. I was throwing myself into work because it was easier than dealing with the emotional fallout, the betrayal, the humiliation, the anger. It was all still there, just buried under spreadsheets and data models. One of Nia's old coworkers messaged me a couple of weeks later, said Dominic was done for. HR didn't even flinch once the evidence hit their desk. Turns out he'd pulled the same stunt at 2 other companies, always under the guise of mentorship, but this was the first time someone had nailed him with actual receipts. His wife took half his assets in the house, left him stuck in a cramped studio apartment, and now he's basically blacklisted across the industry. No one's touching him unless they've got a death wish for their legal department. As for Nia, she'd moved back in with Patricia and was working at some small company where no one knew her history. According to Tori, who'd become a good friend through all this, Nia still painted herself as the victim, but fewer people believed her now. She tried getting a job at Evans Group, Tori told me over coffee, but apparently someone there knew someone from her old company, and the story had spread. She didn't make it past the first interview. Not my problem, I said, and meant it. I focused on what mattered, and within a month after everything went down, I landed a huge client, a Fortune 500 company needing data visualization for their quarterly reports. Their VP had seen my work and, ironically, Patricia's LinkedIn rants had put me on his radar. Anyone who pisses off that woman must be doing something right, he joked during our meeting. She's notorious in the industry for being impossible. The money started flowing in, real money earned through skill and hard work. I upgraded my equipment, hired 2 junior analysts to help with the workload, moved to a better apartment. No traces of Nia anywhere. Recently, as I was at a networking event, I overheard someone mention Dominic's name. Apparently, he'd tried to start a consulting firm, but his reputation had followed him. No major companies would touch him. He was doing small-time work for local businesses, a far cry from his corporate director role. Karma's a crap, the guy was saying. Dude thought he was untouchable. I didn't join the conversation, just smiled to myself and moved on. I wasn't interested in Dominic's downfall. I was focused on my own success. That success kept building. My client list grew. My reputation solidified. I hired more staff, moved into a proper office space, started being invited to speak at industry events. All the things I'd been working toward during those dark months were finally happening. I sit here nowadays and think about everything. I think I handled it right. Like I just removed myself completely. Walked away with my dignity and my data. Let her sit with what she destroyed. I'm not bitter, just clearer about what I deserve. Now I'm making triple what I made at my old job, building something that's mine,